This is going to be very interesting because we're talking all about, I'm just going to move you back a bit there. We're talking all about histamine intolerance, mast cell activation syndrome, and how we can distinguish between one and the other, and how the body removes histamine in both of these situations. So there's a very important distinction, and we're just going to split this like this. So we're just going to go right down the middle. So when we're looking at classic histamine intolerance, something that's really important to think straight off the bat is you can have histamine intolerance and MCAS. So if you've got both of these things happening to you at the same time, you've got a double whammy, and you need to really consider that in this approach. But I want to talk about how we can distinguish between histamine intolerance and MCAS, why these things are different, how they kind of get grouped together, and why it can be so difficult to understand which is the one that's causing your problem. So the best way we can understand this is we can look at how we remove, or how we get exposed to histamine and how we remove histamine from our body. So here we're going to write exogenous. So exogenous, this word basically means it comes externally. So this is exo. So exo is from external, genus means like to generate. So this means this is histamine that is being generated outside of our body. And then on this side, we've got endogenous, which means it comes from within. So this is already a really good point to make, because even though our digestive system, and this is the place where a lot of histamine can be produced. So if you have certain organisms in your gut that are producing histamine, or if you eat a high histamine food and then that's in your gut, it kind of feels like it's inside you, but it's actually not. Everything that's happening inside your digestive system is technically exogenous. It's technically outside of your body. So this is histamine that you're eating in your diet. This is histamine that's being produced in your gut as a byproduct of fermentation. This might be one reason why, even if you eat a low histamine diet, you have histamine intolerance symptoms, because the foods that you're eating, while they're low in histamine, are fermenting in your gut. The organisms that are present in your gut are fermenting these things down and producing histamine as a byproduct. And that can result in high levels of histamine, even though you've eaten food that's low in histamine. So I see this most commonly with carbohydrates. So starch, especially, because that's the most complex carbohydrate to break down. So if any part of your digestive system is struggling to break these foods down, these organisms that can produce histamine through fermentation eat these carbohydrate foods and produce histamine, and then you get histamine symptoms, even though you've eaten low histamine foods. So this is all exogenous. So let me write these down here for you. So exogenous, we've got food, we've got fermentation. So this is inside your own gut. So this is the microbes that are present, and this gives you a really good clue as to how we're going to resolve this problem, because if you're producing histamine in your own gut because you've got the wrong bugs, we have to change the composition of the microflora so there's less histamine producing organisms. So they're the two sources of exogenous histamine. Over here in endogenous, we've got mast cells. So there's other cells in your body that produce histamine, but the biggest one, and especially in the context of mast cell activation syndrome, is your mast cells. So what's happening in this case is, so this is on the left, on this side over here, this is happening outside of the body, but over here we've got inside the body. So something is happening inside the body. So this is past the digestive system and past your skin. So this is actually happening inside your body. Something is happening that's causing the mast cell to activate. And your body is not stupid. Your mast cells aren't stupid. They don't just activate for no reason. They activate for a reason. There's some kind of inflammatory molecule or pathogen or some kind of environmental stress that causes them to activate. And when they activate, they release histamine. So this histamine is actually being produced inside your own body. So this is really the difference between sort of histamine intolerance and MCAS, because over here, histamine intolerance really is an exogenous problem. Histamine intolerance. Not very good at typing. This isn't a laptop that I'm used to typing on. Intolerance. Brilliant. And over here we've got MCAS. So that's really the biggest distinction. Is you've got mast cells activating inside your body, it's producing endogenous histamine, whereas in histamine intolerance, it's more of an exogenous thing. You've got food that's high in histamine that you're reacting to, and you've got fermentation and byproducts of this fermentation process happening in the gut that's causing excess histamine to be produced. So now we understand this, we need to try to understand how the body functions on removing this histamine from the body based in where it's being produced. So on this side, we've got DAO. So DAO stands for diamine oxidase. It is a really cool looking, enzymes look really cool. They look really graphically interesting. So DAO is the enzyme that we use to break down histamine, and it's present on the microvilli inside our small intestine. So let me just figure out how to draw a little squiggly line. I think it's this one here. So it's present on the brush border of your small intestine. So excuse my terrible artistic skills, but we're going to draw like a microvilli like this. So this is like inside your gut. And I'm sure you've probably seen an Activia commercial or Yakult or something like that. You've got these little wiggly finger-like protrusions inside your gut. And DAO is produced on the surface of these little fingers. So if your gut is damaged in any way, and these finger-like protrusions are smaller or they're damaged, they're not functioning properly, you're going to have less DAO being produced. So you've got this is an example of healthy microvilli over here. Let's just emphasize this. So this is healthy. This one is healthy. And you can see that it's healthy because present on the surface. So Joanna's just giving me my phone back. So I can see your questions now. So if you have questions, let me know. Lovely to have you all, by the way. So this one's healthy because if you look at it, it's got a DAO molecule here, and it's got a DAO molecule here, and it's got one here, and they're everywhere. There's loads of DAO. So there's enough DAO so that however much histamine is being produced in the gut, all of it is being broken down before it's absorbing. So this is what's really interesting about this part. Let me see if I can do an arrow. That would be cool. Oh yeah, we can. So any histamine that isn't broken down properly in the gut with DAO comes over here, it comes into the body, it's absorbed. And this is a one-way thing. So if you're producing too much histamine in your body, it doesn't matter, like if your mast cells are activating and you're producing the histamine inside your body, it doesn't matter how much DAO you have in your gut. It's not going to affect it at all because this is a one-way system. The histamine is being absorbed if it isn't being properly broken down by the DAO. So now let's draw you another example of a damaged gut. So over here we got a damaged gut. So instead of having like really healthy villi, it's like they're really stubby. Maybe you've got one kind of healthy one, but they're really small and they're really not happy. So this one's really unhappy. And you know that this is also unhappy because not only does it look really, really small and non-functional, it's also only got like one molecule of DAO here. So this one, in the same area of the gut, the same amount of space in the gut, you've basically got 5 DAO enzymes. Whereas here, because this gut's damaged, none of these little villi over here have been able to produce any DAO. You've only got one that's been able to produce some here. So say you have 5 molecules of histamine come in. Let's use this color here. So you've got 5 molecules of histamine coming in. So you've got one there. Oh, you got one there. You got one there. Oh, that one's a little bit bigger. You got one there, and you've got another one here. Well, if all of this has been, so this could be either in the food that you eat. So this could be high histamine foods. This could be like peppers. This could be citrus, orange juice, lemon juice. This could be, but whatever it is, whatever you've eaten that's high in histamine. If you've got this healthy gut, all of these molecules have DAO enzymes to break them down. So that's fine. They all get broken down and nothing absorbs into your body. So you don't get any histamine intolerant symptoms. But if your gut is damaged, like in this example down here, let's use red again. So if it's damaged, all this histamine comes. No, that's the wrong type of arrow. Is there a way to spin that around? No, I'm a bit of a tech noob. Let's get rid of that. Where's the delete key? Cool. This is the arrow that I want it to come down. So when this histamine comes down here, you've only got one molecule of DAO, of this DAO enzyme. So 4 of these molecules aren't being broken down. which means as a result, they absorb into the body. So they come this way. Oh, again, wrong kind of arrow. Let's delete that. So now these come into the body, and now your backup pathway has to process it. So the backup pathway that we use, or this is how we break down any histamine that we produce ourselves. So from our mast cells activating, or like say you scratch yourself or you get a cut and it gets inflamed, that's histamine that makes it get inflamed, that's being released by parts of your immune system. So if you've got this occurring, the way that we break this down is through our secondary pathway. So this is called HNMT. I'm not going to write that because it's massive, but it stands for histamine N-methyltransferase. So HNMT. And first of all, so if you're familiar with like methylation, or you've been interested in this for a while, you'll notice that this MT is, so it's histamine N-methyltransferase. So this is an enzyme that's going to break histamine down, and it uses methylation to do it. So if you know you have methylation problems, this is probably going to be a significant factor for you. But even if not, it's still interesting because we can only methylate so much, even if we're completely healthy. So if there's an overload of histamine, either coming from the gut, as you see from this arrow, or being produced from our mast cells, we're not going to be able to break it down. So this is a process that occurs in our liver. Everything that comes from your digestive system goes straight to your liver. So if this process that's occurring over here, where you've got 4 extra molecules that weren't able to be broken down by this DAO because the gut is damaged, and this can even be worse. So maybe it's not even that you ate 5 molecules of histamine. Maybe you're already eating a low histamine diet, but you ate like rice and you ate past the amount of ability that you have to break down the sugars. So another really cool example is if we look at this brush border example again. So this yellow square represents DAO, but we've got this green square as well. This is also a brush border enzyme. This is called maltase. So this healthy gut has got 5 of these molecules. So we can break down lots of starch, which is great because we want to be able to break it down so we can digest and absorb it. But this damaged gut over here is only able to produce 1 molecule of maltase, which means all of this sugar that's trying to be broken down isn't able to be digested properly. So consequently, even though, like, say this is like rice or potatoes or something that's actually low in histamine and doesn't cause, like, it's tolerated on a low histamine diet, but you can still have a reaction to it if you eat these foods, you don't break them down and digest them properly. And as a result, the little bacteria that are present in your gut, so this can be especially different types of yeasts, so candida, things like that, they love to produce histamine, and they love carbs, especially carbs that haven't been broken down properly. So they can eat these foods and they can actually produce histamine. So even if you ate low histamine, you can produce histamine in your gut, and that can explain why you're having symptoms even though you ate low histamine diet. So we could have this histamine coming in over here into this HNMT pathway, so that's putting extra work on the HNMT pathway. But also we've got all of the histamine that's being produced by our mast cells. So as we discussed earlier, our mast cells aren't stupid. They activate if there's something that's activating them. They don't just get triggered for no reason. They get triggered by environmental toxins. They get triggered by like different types of pollutants. Even if you're in a fight or flight, or in a very, say you have an argument, it's very common for people to have flare-ups of MCAS after they have an argument or a heated emotional event, because this puts the body in fight or flight. The mast cells, they're detecting a threat, so they trigger it and release histamine, and it can cause a kind of flare-up. So all of this histamine that's overloaded from the gut and coming into the body, and the amount of histamine that's being produced by the mast cells is going to fill up the pathway, the HNMT pathway. So I've got another video that I did quite a while ago I called it my liver load video. So if we want to imagine the liver is kind of like a cup. So let me just draw you a little cup here. So this is your body's tolerance for histamine. So, oh no, let's keep that black. So as you can see, over here, we've got these light bluish molecules of histamine. So because the gut isn't working properly, 4 of these molecules have entered the body. So that's already put in the liver, the pathway that's breaking down histamine inside the body. It's already basically almost full. So then we've got the amount of, so that's just that. And then we've got histamine that's being produced inside the body for normal, regular functions. So histamine is actually really important. Everybody produces histamine. Everybody needs histamine. It dilates and restricts blood vessels. It triggers an immune response. It's a neurotransmitter. It encourages your stomach to produce stomach acid. It's so important. It does so many different functions. So it's not that histamine is intrinsically bad. It's when our body isn't able to remove the excess of histamine that it's being exposed to quickly enough that we get these unpleasant symptoms. So let's say we've got this. This is like our daily metabolic requirements for histamine. So this is just like stomach acid secretions and neurotransmitter function. And so this is why, so neurotransmitter function is a really good example. This is why some people struggle with insomnia or hyperactivity or attention deficit disorder as a consequence of histamine intolerance. It's because it acts as a neurotransmitter. So it affects the way you think and the way you're able to fall asleep, and it regulates your nervous system. It does a lot of these different things. So at this point, we still don't have any symptoms. So you're still not having a histamine intolerance flare because this HNMT pathway is still able to keep up with all of the histamine that you've been exposed to from your gut, all of this extra histamine that's coming in, and from your daily metabolic processes, which is great. But then let's say you're exposed to an environmental toxin. So this could be a million different things. This could be like if you're sensitive to certain chemicals. This could be when you smell a certain perfume. This could be when you walk through the chemical aisle at the supermarket. This could be when you smell gasoline. This could be when you walk into a building that has mold in it. This could be when you eat a food that you're sensitive to. So this is a really interesting one because you might eat a food that's low histamine and you're able to digest it, but you've got increased permeability in the gut. So this molecule leaks through the gut barrier. So this is leaky gut. I'm sure if you're listening this far, you already know what leaky gut is. So leaky gut is where you've got increased levels of intestinal permeability. So things that should stay in the digestive system are leaking through from the gut into the body. And when this happens, like this molecule that's now leaked in is your body is on like high alert. It's like, this is a threat. This is a pathogen. This is inflammatory. We need to get rid of it. So it does a smart thing, and the mast cells activate. They're like, oh, look at all of this pollutants in the blood. So they activate. They start firing histamine. They go crazy. But it's the right thing to do. It's what they're supposed to do. But in this process of activating, they produce loads more histamine. So then you've got, so this is histamine that's being produced from this inflammatory response. So now you've got this huge extra load of histamine that's just been produced because your mast cells are activating from your mold exposure or exposure to a chemical, or you ate a food that you're actually intolerant to and it leaked in through the gut, which triggered your mast cells to activate. And now all of this excess histamine is essentially not fitting inside this cup, which means your body's tolerance, your body's ability to remove this histamine from your body quickly enough has been overwhelmed. And this is going to present in all of your different types of histamine intolerance symptoms. So this up here is now your symptoms. In red, let's try and change that to black. No, it's not changing to black. It's red. Fine, we'll do that. So now you've got all of these symptoms. So this is why the itching flares up. This is why the insomnia starts, the anxiety, the racing heart rate, the heart palpitations, all of the different things that are connected to it. It's not because histamine is bad. It's because you've overwhelmed this secondary pathway, this HNMT. So the thing that's really important that you understand here is this is not a two-way system. So if you are becoming overloaded with histamine because your mast cells are activating and they're producing more histamine than you're able to process out with your HNMT pathway, DAO does not affect this at all. It has absolutely no impact on it. DAO only works in this left side of the equation over here. Let's see if I can put this in a big box. So DAO only works for everything that's mentioned over here. So if your histamine intolerance is actually caused by mast cell activation syndrome, DAO isn't really going to help you very much. It can in some cases, because although the majority of your histamine symptoms might be caused by your mast cells activating, by taking some DAO, we can effectively reduce the amount of histamine that's absorbing if you also have gut dysbiosis present that are producing histamine, or you eat an extremely high histamine food which just slightly overwhelms your gut's ability to break the histamine down. But if it's the other way around, and if your gut is actually functioning very effectively, you've got enough DAO, you've got a good floral composition, and it's just that your immune system, your mast cells are activating wrong, It doesn't matter what you do in your gut. It doesn't matter what you do about DAO. It doesn't matter what you do with like probiotics and trying to change the flora composition. It's all happening outside of this square. And this is a one-way equation. It doesn't work. It doesn't go backwards. Your HNMT cannot be really directly supported by your DAO pathway. They're kind of separate. So what do we do about it? So the problem is, and this is why there's so much overlap with these problems, is very often, more often than not, in fact, the biggest stimulus for the mast cells activating is actually what's happening inside the gut. So you've got both of these things happening. You've got low levels of DAO, you've got low levels of brush border enzymes, so you're not breaking down your food properly. So you've also got a dysbiosis present that is causing pathogens to eat the food that you're not breaking down properly and produce histamine. So you've got all of that happening. And then because of all of this, your gut's damaged and you've got increased levels of intestinal permeability. So foods are leaking through, undigested proteins, bacterial fragments, lipopolysaccharides, loads of inflammatory molecules, which are then triggering your mast cells to activate. So you've got excess histamine coming from the gut. You've got excess histamine being produced in the gut from the imbalance in flora. You've got the mast cells activating because you've got inflammatory molecules coming in from the increased intestinal permeability. And you've got this huge cascade of just so much histamine being produced and exposed to and not being able to be broken down properly that it causes all of these extremely unpleasant symptoms. So what do we do about it? Well, I would say the first step is working on the gut. You've got to work on the gut. This thing that we've got highlighted here in this little box. If your gut is like this, if you're able to produce all of these brush border enzymes you need to break your food down properly, you're able to produce enough DAO, you're able to reduce the levels of intestinal permeability that you have, so your gut is really healthy, you don't have inflammatory molecules leaking in and causing the mast cells to activate. If this is the case, this little example you've got here, this is also a really nice environment for your healthy bacteria to live. You can imagine that your bacteria, this little diagram that we've got here is like the house for your bacteria. This is where they live. So if it's like damaged like this, it's not going to be a very nice environment for your probiotic species to inhabit. Whereas opposed to over here, you've got this really nice, so these are kind of like they kind of look like apartments. So it's like inside your gut, these microvilli are like really nice luxury apartments. So you can host all of these really lovely probiotics that protect you and help stimulate the repair of your gut barrier and stimulate it to produce DAO. And these organisms are actually what protect you from the histamine producing organisms. If you've got an overgrowth or a dysbiosis of histamine producing organisms in the gut, it's very rarely actually them that's really truly the problem. The problem is more often that the healthy beneficial bacteria that keep them in balance aren't there. So that's also a bit of a perspective shift for some, to move from a perspective of trying to kill whatever's causing the dysbiosis to actually maybe the dysbiosis is just present because the right organisms that keep it in balance aren't present there. So the first thing I would do with trying to resolve this would be going low histamine can help because it can reduce symptoms. We're reducing the amount of exogenous histamine that we're exposed to, so that can really help. But more so than that, we need to make sure we're removing any foods that we are intolerant to. So these are foods that you are not currently able to digest. I'm strongly against unnecessary restriction in your diet. I really don't like it. Food is supposed to be great. It's supposed to be awesome, pleasurable. It's an amazing experience. But if you're eating food that's making you weak, that's keeping you sick, that you're reacting to, that's not helping you. Your food is supposed to build you up and make you strong, not break you down and make you weak. So if you need to temporarily remove foods that you have lost the ability to digest because your gut is damaged, while you work on healing the gut, so then you're able to reintroduce those foods, break them down, digest them, and have them be healthy for you again, then maybe that's what you have to do at this stage. But if you need to remove those foods temporarily, do that. But really focus on healing the gut, restoring the DAO, reducing the intestinal permeability, so we're able to increase the amount of DAO that's being produced naturally in the gut. We're able to reduce the organisms that are present in the gut that are producing excess histamine. And as we reduce the intestinal permeability of the gut, we reduce the amount of inflammatory molecules that leak in from the gut that cause the mast cells to activate. So this is just one example of an environmental exposure. If you're exposed to other things, so this is just looking at one way. that our mast cells activate. So they also activate if you're exposed to things that you breathe that are toxic as well. So this can be like perfumes, this can be mold, this can be if you've got like metals in your teeth. These are really damaging to your gut flora, but they're also vaporizing all the time. Your mouth is full of saliva, which is very slightly acidic. You're making this sort of battery effect that's happening in your mouth. It's vaporizing, especially when you have like hot foods, hot coffee, so acidic and warm. It begins to vaporize this like mercury, and you're inhaling it. This is coming in through the lungs. It's causing an inflammatory reaction. It triggers the mast cells to activate. So what we need to do is understand that histamine is not the enemy. Histamine is actually an integral, essential part of every single person. Everyone that doesn't have histamine intolerance is using histamine. Even if you have histamine intolerance, you still need histamine to function. If all of the histamine was just removed from your body, you'd literally die. It's so important. You use it for neurotransmitters, you use it in your gut, use it to regulate your sleep. It does so many different things. It's essential. So it's not that histamine is bad, it's that we're being overwhelmed by it and we've lost our ability to remove it from the body. So this is where you need to focus. This is really understanding the root cause of this and resolving it. What can we do temporarily to get symptom relief? We can reduce histamine in the diet. If a lot of this histamine is coming from the flora in the gut and our inability to produce DAO in our gut, taking DAO can be helpful. If this is more of a mast cell activation syndrome problem and the HNMT pathway is getting overwhelmed, first of all, we need to do everything we can to reduce the activation of the mast cells, so reduce anything that's causing these things to activate. So this can be heightened emotion. So if you're in a really stressful work environment, this can be mold, this can be environmental toxicity, this can be increased levels of intestinal permeability in your gut. This can be so many different things. So we need to reduce that. So that's going to reduce the amount of stuff that's going into this cup over here. But we can also boost our HNMT pathway. So this cup has kind of got like a little, it's kind of got like a little hole at the bottom. So there's histamine coming out all the time. And we're processing histamine through this HNMT pathway. But if we can boost this pathway, it makes this arrow get way bigger. So we can process more histamine out quicker, which means even if we still have more coming in, even if our mast cells are still activating, even if we're exposed to more histamine from our gut, from our diet, we're able to process it out faster. So this is a pathway that uses methylation. So if you know you've got like MTHFR mutations, or you've got any types of genetic predispositions to not methylate very well, make sure you're giving yourself the support that you need. This has it's like doubly sinister, because if you've got methylation issues, you need to, so in this case of MTHFR, you're lower in folate and you need folate. And this could be being caused because your gut flora is imbalanced. And usually our gut flora is where we produce most of our folate. If you're a healthy individual and you're eating the right foods and the right amount of fiber, you can actually produce enough folate from your own gut flora to satiate the needs of your body. So you can produce enough folate to boost these pathways naturally. But if your gut flora is off, if you've got all of these problems going on here, the gut flora, the microvilli are damaged, you've got increased intestinal permeability, you've got dysbiosis, you're missing all of these beneficial organisms that would eat your food and produce beneficial things for you. And instead you've got organisms that are eating your food and producing negative things for you, like an overload of histamine. It's a really tricky cycle to get into. So supporting methylation can also be really helpful. I'm just about to wrap this up. So if you have any questions, let me know. We've still got a good few people watching. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know. Leave me a question below. So how would we go about this? So let's talk a little bit about what we can do to try and support the gut. So the most important factor in this is absolutely the composition of the microbiome, and this is where probiotics come into the situation. So I know probiotics can be kind of scary in this situation because, well, if you think of natural probiotics, these are fermented foods, all extremely high in histamine. So you probably want to start I always suggest with probiotics or fermented foods, you always start on a very, very small amount. You want to be very careful and make sure that you're choosing a probiotic that is low in histamine. So it means the probiotic itself is low in actually histamine itself, but it also contains strains that aren't histamine producers. So they're either histamine neutral or they actually break down histamine, which is going to help you with this because they're going to help break down histamine in your gut. But the reason that you want to start really slow with this is you can cause Herxheimer reactions so although these probiotics are beneficial, because they are probiotic and they are beneficial, they're going to fight whatever is living in your gut, whatever is currently making you sick. So if you've got organisms that are present in your gut, so this could be certain species of yeast or different types of organisms, they're going to fight. They're going to fight for space. They're going to fight for resources. And in this process, the organisms that are living there currently, they want to stay there. Like, this is prime real estate for them. They don't want to move out. And you're bringing in competition of these healthy organisms, and these healthy organisms are going to fight for you. They're going to start trying to evict these suboptimal organisms, and they're going to put up a bit of a fight. They're going to release endotoxins and things that are going to overwhelm your detox pathways, and things that are going to maybe affect your motility. Maybe you're going to feel more constipated. Maybe you're going to have diarrhea. They're going to produce lots of gas, and they're also going to produce histamine. So this can be one reason that you actually have a histamine reaction to a low histamine probiotic. This isn't because the probiotic is actually high in histamine. It's because when you put it in your gut, it fights with the organisms that are already present that are producing histamine, that are actually causing your histamine intolerance. So this is why you have to go really, really slow, and you have to stay within your window of tolerance. I call this the Goldilocks zone. So this is where you're taking as much as you can so you can progress as quickly as possible, but you're also not making your life absolutely an unbearable living hell. So keep your symptoms in mind and staying just below. So you've got this cup example over here. You want to stay in between these two lines. So you've got this blue line here, you've got this green line here. This is where you want to stay. If it's any lower than this, you could be going faster. You could be healing quicker. And that's obviously not optimal. If you go over this green line, you're going to get unpleasant symptoms. So stay in this Goldilocks zone here. So that's everything for today. No questions. So if you're watching this as a recording and you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. Make sure you tag me at William Dickinson. I don't get all of my notifications unless you tag me. If you tag me, I will guarantee get your notification and I'll get back to you and answer your question. If you don't tag me, I might not get a notification and I might miss it, and I don't want to miss it. So make sure you tag me below. Hope this has been helpful. Hope this has been informative. I hope this has completely revolutionized and transformed your understanding of histamine intolerance and mast cell activation syndrome. And if it's been helpful, please let me know. Please leave me a comment. Tell me that it's been helpful, because I take a good portion of time out of my day to try and share all of the insight that I gained over the last 5 years of healing my histamine intolerance and MCAS. So if you appreciate this and this is really valuable information for you, please feel free to share it. I'm really doing this to try to help people. So if you can share this anywhere you think it would be appreciated, please do that. And also leave me a comment and let me know that you appreciate it. So I'm going to have to figure out how to wrap this stream up. So I'm going to get my lovely tech wizard to come and give me some assistance. So Joanna's just coming over. Thank you very much for coming. I hope this has been really helpful and informative. If you have any questions, please just let me know. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. I do videos like this all the time. So if you like it, let me know. That's everything. See you. Bye-bye. Ciao.